Howdy, Space Caps here, and before we start the video, I would like to thank these other YouTube channels for the footage I'm borrowing for this review. As you guys know, LEGO is very touchy about anyone using their clips, and it's really hard to make a Ninjago video without being copyrighted to hell. So, thank you to Bendobricks, Tannerfishies, and Weevie for the footage in this video. Links to their channels will be down below in the description. Alrighty then, today we are talking about Dragons Rising Season 3 Part 2, and whoo boy has this review been a long time coming. I did my best to avoid all the leaks and spoilers that sadly flooded the Ninjago community after the release of Part 1, so I could watch it legit when it came out, and now that it has, let's not waste any more time and get to my thoughts on it. Of course, let's get the obvious out of the way, and that is the animation. I don't know how Wildbrain does it, but somehow each season looks better than the last. Even when there's a main color for the season, such as red for season 2 and part 1 of 3, and blue for the back half, it still manages to look so good. The fights are still fluid, we still get to visit a million different locations that all look distinct, and the designers aren't afraid to change how the ninja look. I straight up have no notes when it comes to this department, and I hope it stays that way going forward. My claim for this being the biggest Dragons Rising season, let alone Ninjago season in general in terms of scale, still stands. Honestly, I can't believe we live in an age where the children's show has a better animation budget than the one made for adults. With that said, there was a noticeable reduction of action in this part, and honestly, I kinda like that. You guys know that I've always commended Ninjago on their ability to somehow sneak action in every episode, but I like how there were less fights in this part, as it felt like the writers wanted to put storytelling and character building above all else, which definitely feels like a change of pace for Ninjago. I'm pretty sure there were actual entire episodes we'd go without a fight. So yeah, I like how the fights were used sparingly, as it felt like they were holding back for something truly special. However, this is where my only issue with the lack of action comes in. Since they were holding back all season, I was expecting something truly great when we got to the finale, and instead the final fight was kinda bland. The kaiju fight lacked a lot of the gravitas you'd expect from a typical kaiju fight, and a lot of the moves there felt really stiff and slow. Also, do the ninja not have comms? I swear, I've seen this team use earpieces before. What's with this whole, we need to raise the stakes so let's not have them communicate with each other nonsense? Like, technology exists in this world, guys. This is a fantasy show with sci-fi elements. I know y'all have a phone you could use to at least call each other to make sure the job was done. But let's talk about the season itself. And to start, I want to bring your attention to the structure of it. I've had a history with Ninjago seasons not knowing how to start and the inciting incident always being rough. Most seasons usually have a slow beginning that, over the course of the season, finally ramps up to a big finish. I've always said that outside their finale seasons, Ninjago really knows how to make an ending. So, imagine my surprise when I found out that both the beginning and ending of this season rocked. Part 1 threw us straight into the action and fetch quest, and Part 2 started with the spectral invasions. I thought this was a great way to set up the chaotic tone the season had in store for us. With that said though, I need to talk about the choppy pacing. As much as I appreciate the season for hooking us in quickly, I can't say it was smoothly paced. Now, Ninjago has always had a problem with pacing, and Dragons Rising is no exception, but the shortcomings have been really apparent for the last season and a half. My biggest issue with Dragons Rising Season 2 Part 2 was that it felt too rushed. There wasn't enough time for the plot and characters to breathe, and I hoped that it would rectify that issue going into Season 3, but it seems like I was wrong. I've already talked about Part 1's choppy pacing, but Part 2 is an entirely different beast. Not only does the story feel like it's going at 1,000 miles per hour with random stops, but there are just too many subplots to keep track of. I never thought I'd say this about a Ninjago season, but it is actually hard to keep up with everything. By the time I was done with the season, I straight up forgot where we last saw Cole or Moro or the Finders. Like, say what you will about Part 1, but at least they knew when to take a break from a certain group of characters and come back to them a couple of episodes later. Here, we're dragging everyone's stories at the same time. I understand that maybe the season wanted to instill a theme of chaos and overwhelming senses into us, but if that's the case, it's a very strange and bold creative choice that's not for everyone. I'll give it that. I know people have talked about the cast being too big, and while I didn't mind it in the previous seasons, the drawbacks are very apparent here. And this character bloat is what leads to my and many other fans' biggest issue with the season, and that is the villains. Now, I don't subscribe to the idea that Dragons Rising as a whole has a villain problem, as we've honestly gotten some really great villains from this show, such as Raz, Beatrix, and even Raptor, who works as a comedic villain. But that's not to say we don't get bad villains, because we absolutely do. Look no further than Dorama, who has quickly become my least favorite character in both shows. The Season 3 villains, however, are what I like to call wasted potential. The fall of the Forbidden Five needs to be studied, as they started off as the most promising villains the franchise would ever give us, and they ended up being nothing other than roadblocks. In the 20 episodes we've gotten from them, we get next to nothing about their personality, their powers, or even their dynamic as a team. They supposedly subjugated Raz's tiger tribe to extinction, that's why he hated them, but we don't even get to see much of their realm conquering, nor any angst from Raz himself. Part 1 ends by killing them off, and Part 2 makes them empty husks with no personality or dialogue to give. One would think that their sudden benching was done just to show off how imposing Thunderfang is as a big bad, but nope. He's not that great a villain if we're taking both parts into account. For the Dragon of Chaos, I was expecting some truly unhinged stuff from Thunderfang, but he spends most of Part 2 vibing in the spectral lands, and in the finale, he just shouts his generic phrase of, "Oh, I'll get you, Source Dragons, you lied to me, grrr," over and over again. Despite what the marketing and writers tried to tell us, Thunderfang and the Forbidden Five come off as nothing more than regular power-hungry villains. They really needed more time to be fleshed out and interact with the ninja and each other, but as is, 20 episodes is 20 episodes, and I think we ultimately have to admit that the writers' hearts just weren't into these guys. It's like they made them world-ending threats because that's what the formula demands, something I very much drew attention to in my Part 1 review. And I don't say that the writers' hearts weren't interested in developing these guys because the Dragons Rising writers can't make good villains. Quite the contrary, actually. There didn't seem to be that much care poured into Thunderfang and the Forbidden Five because the writers had other villains that they were actually interested in and wanted to develop. Enter Lee, one of Ninjago's creepiest and best villains as of recent memory. I love everything about Lee and his realm. I love how he's probably this old eldritch being that's just a regular guy who's existed all alone for millennia. I love his ability, his artificial city, and his gaslighting methods. Bro has lied to everyone in his city that the outside world doesn't exist, and he literally carves out gravestones so that the friends and family of his residents don't come looking for them. And to anyone on the inside who doesn't act the way he wants, he kidnaps them and brainwashes them to comply. Like, what the freak? In any other show, this would be the big reveal of the entire series. Attack on Titan. Bro is next level screwed, and I love how the show ignores both how messed up his actions truly are, except for when they don't want to. It's a twisted funny. I do think he was defeated a bit too easily, but the writers were vague enough about him and his true nature, so I wouldn't mind revisiting Lee again in the future just to learn more about him. And finally, we have Raz. Honestly, Raz was as great in this season as he always was. I love that we get a bit more insight to his character and how ruthless he is. The twist that he wanted to kill Sora to further his goals was genuinely shocking and hilarious given how much stuff he had to put up with. And yeah, he killed a guy. No ifs and or buts about that. Raz meant business this season, and I love his takeover of the monastery. While not the most exciting action set piece, it did show just how brutal this character was and how far he was willing to go to achieve his goals. I also like that the writers didn't overpower Raz. If you didn't notice, Raz isn't the most powerful or skilled fighter in the series. Despite dogging iron and skeletons and just proving his worth as a warrior overall, he has been beaten by lesser enemies using lesser methods before. And as we've seen in previous seasons, he can barely hold his own against fully trained ninja and will avoid fights with them if he can. In a show full of eldritch gods planning to destroy the world every week, it's nice having a Ninjago villain who's competent and a threat to our new main characters without being overpowered. He is hands down one of Ninjago's most interesting villains, and I really hope the mystery surrounding him and his master gets an amazing payoff when we get to it. Well, we've talked about the villains, but what about the main characters? How are our favorite fruit-colored ninja doing at this point in life? Honestly, I think almost every ninja was handled great. Let's get the obvious stinkers out of the way, starting with Zane. Zane is the biggest disappointment for me in this season so far. Forget the villains, this was supposed to be Zane's time to shine. I remember a tweet from Doc Wyatt, the head writer of the show from 2023, saying that he and the crew would make plans to give Zane some proper spotlight. Of course, Dragon's Rising Season 3 was already done with production at that time, so it's very likely that we won't get any proper Zane content till next year, but his treatment in this season was very lackluster. The only episode to properly focus on him was, of course, the one where he finds Pixel. In part 2, he gets unceremoniously written out at the beginning of the arc, and it was just sad to see how pathetically little effort they put into his goodbye. This is so disrespectful for a character whose face is literally on the season's box art. I really do hope the writers cook up something genuinely amazing to give Zane next season, cause there really is more to his character than just Pixel. Zane and to an extent Cole are really in their wild brain Kai era right now, and my heart goes out to their fans. Side note, I do find it funny how the internet is obsessed with pointing out and critiquing female characters who have little agency outside their love interests, yet I've not seen a single soul complain about how everything Zane has done in this show is in service of Pixel. Don't get me wrong, Pixane is still my favorite ship and I love their dynamic, but I just want to see other facets of Zane's character. And since I mentioned Cole, while I don't think he's as flanderous as Zane right now, it is kind of frustrating constantly seeing him put the Finders over the Ninja. I get that he spent time with them right after the merge, but the Ninja are also his first family. Yes, they're more independent now, but he's still a ninja. The reason I bring this up is because in one episode in part 2, the Finders get their souls drained by Noct, and Cole has the option to either upgrade his sword and fight Noct, or try in vain to get the Finders' souls back. In a weird turn of events, Cole is the one who acts brashly while Kai tries to look at the situation with a level head. Cole runs off to fight Noct and unsurprisingly loses, putting the ninja at a disadvantage for the rest of the part. I wouldn't say that this moment was out of character for Cole, as the show did provide context for why he did it, but I can't help but feel like they're slowly pigeonholing him to just be the caretaker of the Finders. I won't call a red alert on him just yet, but Cole fans should sleep with one eye open. With those out of the way, let's talk about the good characters. I briefly mentioned Kai, and yeah, he was good in this part. A definitive step up over what he was doing in part 1. He only makes fun of Jay once in this part, helps find the balanced dragon's body, is surprisingly calm and mature during the Imperium attack, showing his development firsthand, and hard carries in the finale. He once again gets enough to do to prove his worth. See guys, it really is that simple to handle him well. Why do we need to keep regressing him for the sake of jokes? And now he's trapped with Jay and Mia in another realm, so you know the writers are gonna make him insufferable the next time we see him. Please, please Doc Wyatt, let me be wrong. Aaron's development in this part is really on point. I enjoyed how he comes full circle in his character arc and appreciates Lloyd doing the one thing Raz couldn't, finding his parents. It was a really sweet little arc, and I love how Lloyd went to go find his parents without being pressured by Aaron, since, you know, he wasn't around. I like how Aaron considered quitting the ninja now that his quest was over, and later deciding to stay when he realized that it's his true path. I am slightly worried about what he will do now that his arc is over, or if the writers will bench him, but since Eagle mentioned Aaron having a ton of potential to be the next best ninja, I will wait with hope to see them do this boy justice till the end of the series. He has honestly become one of my favorite Ninjago characters. I am really invested in his story. And hey, he can now brag about killing an Arc Dragon twice. And then we have the highlight of this season being none other than Jay and Mia. This part decided to rekindle Jay and Mia's relationship through a new path and lens, and it's honestly some of the best stuff Ninjago has done romance-wise. I love how we get to explore Jay's shattered goodness. It's not a lot since he's a main character and they have to keep him redeemable somehow, but I like that he's allowed to be a jerk and is not afraid to kill. Part of me was really impressed at the scene where he decided to leave the ninja because he didn't want to save the world, but I got hit by the cold slap of reality when he came back in the finale. I'm not annoyed that he came back, I'm annoyed at myself for not seeing the obvious cliche plot point. Anyway, his chemistry with Mia was great, and it shows that the writers can excel when they're allowed to experiment. Though I do think they might have done too good of a job. You see, Jay and Mia's chemistry was so good that it managed to convince a good chunk of the fanbase to not want Jay's memories to ever come back. And that is a lot to unpack, but long story short, I find this take dumb. Frankly, I see anyone who says that they don't want Jay's memories to come back at all as not a true Jay fan. In conclusion, Dragons Rising Season 3 is very much the weakest season of the show so far. The pacing is messy, the reused ideas feel very standard and low effort, while the new stuff is actually interesting, but is pushed to the background. Some plot elements don't get explained, like how the spectrals fully work. I might get into this in a future video, and the subplots and handling of the characters is all over the place. However, being the weakest anything of Dragons Rising still means that you're better than a lot of stuff coming out, this year especially. The animation is still as awesome as ever, if not better, the hype moments are genuinely hype, more lore is introduced, and the season ends off in a very interesting place that sets up the next season very well. Overall, Dragons Rising Season 3 is a very good but ultimately repetitive season of the show, and I hope the next one takes bigger swings. 8 out of 10. Though, to be more specific, it's like a strong 7 week 8. Anyway guys, that's gonna be all from me today. Tell me, what did you think of Ninjago Dragons Rising Season 3? Was it good? Was it bad? Are there some places you could make improvements in? And will Kai ever beat a main villain? It's honestly ridiculous that Aaron has beaten a main villain twice before Kai even got one dub. Let me know all your thoughts down in the comments below, and as always, let's have a discussion. Thank you guys so very much for watching. Be sure to like if you like, subscribe if you haven't already, hit that notification bell to be part of the team, slap a cow, and with that, I've been Captain Phoenix, and I will see you in another universe. Goodbye, my Rangers.